Principal and CEO, Singapore Polytechnic, Mr. So Wai Hua, members of the Board of Governors, distinguished guests, parents, graduates, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, my name is Richard Tan. I'm very, very, very happy to be here. First and foremost, congratulations to all graduates, your parents and lecturers of the Singapore Polytechnics on this very, very special occasion. You've all worked very, very hard and you should be proud of yourself. Now, graduates, let's appreciate all your lecturer and your parents here. Please help me give them a big hand, come on. It is an honor to be speaking before you. I'm also a Singapore Polytechnic graduate. I'm very, very fond. I have very fond memory of this wonderful place. And some of my best year and fun year actually spent within these walls. When Mr. Roger invited me to speak, I asked myself this question: what did I wish someone had said to me when I graduate? Some of you in this room here are still on the lookout for a career opportunity. Some of you here may already found jobs, or some of you who would like to go for further study. Whatever it is that you have planned for your life, I'd like to share with you some short story that I hope will be of use to you. Now, ever since I was 10 years old, I've always wanted to be an electrical engineer. Now, let me share with you the background. Now, I'm a second-generation Singaporean. Both my parents are from China, and my father was a trishaw rider, and my mother a very simple housewife. We were staying in an old house near Mustafa, Little India. One day when I came back home, I was about 10 at that time, I witnessed my mother was having an argument, unpleasant argument with a man. I recognized he was our neighborhood electrician. Apparently, my mother got him to repair a broken ceiling light, and he wanted to charge my mother $2, which today is about $50. My mother felt it was too cutthroat, and only willing to pay half of it. It was an ugly, ugly argument. That night, I told myself that I would never let anyone humiliate my mother again. When I grew up, I want to fix all the electrical work in the house for her, for my mother. I wanted to be the boss to hire that man. That was my compelling reason to want to be an engineer. As soon as I graduated, I can't wait to look for a job. Now, in the Polytechnic, we study Curtis law, Owens law, and many theoretical law that will help us pass our examination. I wanted to experience the real practical part of what I've studied. Many of my classmates, apply for a job in a HDB or URA or a PUB as a draftman or supervisor. But my first instinct is to look for a job that I can learn from scratch. I applied for a job and got a job as a storeman in a small electrical contracting company. As a storeman, I knew that I can get familiar with all the electrical engineering products, such as different type of cable size, distribution panel, switch gear, conduit, trunking, etc. There are few people working in the store, and I was the most hardworking one. The store was busiest in the morning when the company's lorries and pickup come, the electrician will unload all the raw material and send them to the work site. Now, after that, actually, it was quite quiet and there's almost nothing to do. Now, instead of going to link kopi with other workers, I actually volunteered and followed one of the site supervisors to go to the site. And soon, I not only become familiar with what is in the store, but also on the job site. Now, one day, when I went back to the office, it was quite late in the night, I saw there was light in the office. My boss was working on a tender. In fact, I asked him if I could help him. Now, he was fairly surprised because this is obviously out of my job scope. Anyway, he needed someone to add up some figure, etc. And soon, I even learned how to calculate tender. I was the only one in the office that knew what is in the store, what happened on the job site, and how to work on the tender. In just 6 months, I was promoted above my superior and became the right-hand man to my boss. At that time, my pay was lower than many of my classmates working in HDB or URA. But never did I once let my low pay affect my positive working attitude and the opportunity to learn. I was willing to do beyond my job duty. In fact, after my boss passed away, I went to work on the oil rig. With the same positive working attitude and keen learning spirit and willingness to give more than what was required, I managed to make many, many friends. I soon became a popular and highly demanded engineer in the offshore industry. Now, here are some lessons, graduate. Number one, when you are young, don't just look at earning big money. Take the opportunity to learn as much as you can. Number two, make friends first before make money. Okay? Number three, find a compelling reason for doing what you are doing. This is really, really important because during the rough time, this compelling reason will become your anchor and strength to propel you forward. Now today, I'm the chairman of a public listed company. I'm the chairman of Success Resources. We are the leading seminar promoter in the world. As the MC has mentioned, we run about 500 over seminars in 30 countries in 70 cities. We promote world-class speakers like Sir Richard Branson, President Bill Clinton, UK Prime Minister Tony Blair, the world #1 success coach Anthony Robbins, Robert Kiyosaki, and even the current US President, Mr. Donald Trump, speaks on our platform. I started this business a little bit by accident 25 years ago. In the late 1980s, when there's an oil crisis, the oil price went down. The price of the oil was so low that the oil company actually kept the well, because every barrel that came out from the well, the oil company lose money. And I was laid off during this downtime. I have a good friend where I grew up together with. Well, you can guess, he's a friend from Singapore Polytechnic. Now, he volunteered me to help a non-profit organization run a conference. After the conference was over, somebody came to me and said, "Hey, Richard, you're quite a good organizer. Why don't you do it full-time?" And I said, "Why not?" So I've been doing full-time from that day till today, quite by accident. Now, if any one of you seated in this room here, if you ever organize any parties or any conference, you will know that it takes almost the same amount of time to organize a small conference or a big conference. Now, if it takes the same amount of resources and time to organize a small one or a big one, I ask myself this: would I want to organize a small or a big one? Of course, I want to organize a big conference. Now, during that time, the biggest venue in Singapore is the Singapore Indoor Stadium. It can take about 8,000 people at full capacity. Now, I'll ask you a question. If the capacity of the venue can take 8,000 people, what should my target be? Of course, 8,000. Now, after working several months, I did not hit my 8,000 target. I only got 5,000 participants for my first event. It was only a few months later that someone told me it was the largest non-trade business conference in Singapore. The lessons here are as follows. Number one, you don't need to know everything to start doing something. In the street of Singapore, there are many, many people, smart people, maybe smarter than you and me, more qualified than you and me. They are still waiting to find out about everything to start doing something. Now, I did not obtain any formal qualification on how to run a conference. I never worked for any formal company that runs a conference. I have totally no experience. Now, if I have worked for a conference company, my supervisor will most probably stop me and say, "Richard, are you crazy or stupid to want to organize a seminar in the Singapore Indoor Stadium?" Because no one ever do that. The largest non-trade seminar in Singapore at that time was only about 700 people. Because I did not work for any conference company before or have any prior experience, I don't know what cannot be done. Secondly, don't be afraid to think big. Now, I want to ask you a question. Where does thinking come from? 2 feet from your heart. How much does it cost you to think? Nothing. And because it costs you nothing to think big, right? I aimed for 8,000 people. I did not achieve it. but I still get 5,000, which is still a record. Don't be afraid to aim for the star. Even if you don't hit the star, you will hit the moon. Now, the problem is not aiming high and not hit it. The problem is aiming low and you hit it. Number 3, today I did not end up doing the work as what I have studied in the Singapore Polytechnic. But the lesson I learned in the Singapore Polytechnic teaches me how to think. Now, with that thinking skill, I can apply it anywhere and be flexible. I've come to the last part of my presentation. Many magazines and newspapers interview me. One of the most common questions they ask is this: Richard, tell me what's the secret, what is your secret of success? Everybody wants to be successful, but our definition of success are all very different. Many people refer to the material part of it. They want to measure you by how much you earn and how much money you have, whether you own a big house, big car, or big everything, you know. But my definition of success is this: when my wife voted me as the best husband in the world, that to me is success. When my children voted me as the best father in the world, that to me is success. When my friend refer me to as their best friend or good friend, that to me is success. When you grow older and busy with your career, it is hard to develop close friends. If you have a handful, you should count it as a blessing. In 10, 20 years' time, your close friends are unlikely, I mentioned unlikely, those that you just know in your professional year, but those that you know right here in this hall. They may be even your great contact in the advancement of your professional career. Remember, people like to work with people they like. So do keep in touch with all your poly friends. You cannot choose who to be your parents or when you are to be born. You cannot go and ask, Mommy, Daddy, why you never ask my permission to give birth to me? But you can choose how you want to live your life. Fight for your dream, and your dream will fight for you. Don't stop when you're tired. Stop only when it is done. Decide today to make every day the best day for the rest of your life. Graduate, the world out there is waiting for you. Allow me to be the first to welcome you to the world. Thank you.